The city was loud, bright, and careless, the kind of place that swallowed the weak and praised the lucky, and on this winter night, it didn't care that a girl with royal blood was trying to stay invisible. Melissa kept her head down as she stepped back inside St. Bridget's community kitchen, rubbing her hands together to warm them. The air smelled like soup, bleach, and tired hope. People lined up with paper bowls and quiet eyes, waiting for something warm, waiting for tomorrow to be kinder than today. Melissa didn't expect kindness anymore. She only expected rules. Don't take too much. Don't talk too much. Don't look like you need too much. She moved to a corner table where the light didn't hit her face too clearly. Her hoodie was 2 sizes too big, donated, the sleeves hanging past her wrists. Her shoes were secondhand too, the soles thin enough that she could feel the cold through them. But she still wore one thing that wasn't borrowed. A small silver pendant, old and heavy for its size, shaped like a crest, an iron ring around a sharp, elegant symbol. It looked expensive, the kind of jewelry people would steal if they noticed. So she kept it hidden under her collar most of the time. Tonight it slipped out. A volunteer walked past and paused, her eyes catching the gleam. "That's beautiful," the woman whispered, surprised. "Where did you get that?" Melissa's fingers closed over the pendant instantly, like a reflex. "It was my mom's," she said softly. The volunteer smiled kindly, but Melissa's stomach tightened anyway. Kindness always felt like a trap now, like something that came with a price. Across the room, an old TV played the evening news. A reporter talked about rising housing prices and shelters at capacity. The words felt distant, like they belonged to someone else's world. Melissa took one spoonful of soup and forced herself to swallow. She told herself she was safe here. She told herself no one would find her. She told herself a lot of things. And then the door opened, and the entire building seemed to hold its breath. A man stepped inside wearing a long black coat that looked like it belonged in another century. He was tall, broad-shouldered, and unsettlingly calm, like the cold itself had learned how to walk. His hair was pale, almost silver, and his eyes were a hard, stormy gray. People stared. A few whispered. Someone muttered, "Rich guy," like it was an insult and a warning. The man didn't look at anyone else. He looked straight toward Melissa's corner. Melissa's spoon stopped halfway to her mouth. Every survival instinct she had screamed at once. "Run. Hide. Don't let him see you." But his gaze didn't move, like he already knew where she was. The man took one step forward, then another, moving through the room as if the crowd parted for him without realizing it. He didn't rush. He didn't hesitate. His presence carried quiet authority, the kind that didn't need permission. Melissa's heart pounded so hard it hurt. She stood up quickly, knocking her chair back with a loud scrape. A few heads turned. "Sorry," she muttered, already stepping away. But the man spoke, his voice low, controlled, and somehow louder than the room. "Melissa Martinez." Her blood turned to ice. No one used that name anymore. Not out loud. Not like that. Melissa froze. Her fingers gripped the strap of her battered backpack. "Who are you?" she asked, trying to sound brave, but her voice cracked slightly. The man stopped a few feet away. Close enough for her to see the lines of age in his face, yet somehow he looked too perfect, too untouched by time. Close enough for her to smell expensive cologne and winter air. "My name is Garrick Ironvale," he said. The name meant nothing to her. But the way he said it, like it carried weight, made her feel small. "I think," Garrick continued, "we need to talk." Melissa swallowed. "About what?" His eyes dropped, just briefly, to the silver pendant that had slipped out again during her panic. Something changed in his expression. Not softness exactly. Something sharper. Recognition. Then he looked back at her face and his jaw tightened as if he were holding back something violent, but not toward her. "About where you have been living," he said. Melissa's hands tightened around her backpack. "I'm not in trouble." "This is not about trouble," Garrick said, and his voice sounded like a promise. "This is about betrayal." Melissa blinked. "I don't know you." "I know," he said quietly. "And that is part of the problem." Before Melissa could react, a second figure stepped inside behind Garrick. A man in a dark suit, younger, with watchful eyes and a professional posture. Not a bodyguard exactly. More like someone who knew how to find secrets. His gaze swept the room, then settled on Melissa. Garrick didn't look away from her. "May we speak somewhere private?" Melissa's mind raced. A rich stranger knew her name. He recognized her pendant. He walked into a shelter like he owned the air. Everything about him screamed danger. And yet, he wasn't looking at her like she was disposable. He was looking at her like she mattered. Like she was his responsibility. Melissa took a slow step backward. I don't go anywhere private with strangers. Garrick nodded once like he respected her fear. Then we can speak here. But understand this, what I am about to say will change everything you believe about your life. Melissa let out a bitter laugh, shaky and forced. My life already changed. A long time ago. Garrick's eyes didn't soften, but something in them hardened with grief. What if I told you, he said, that 18 years ago I set aside $2 million for you? Melissa stared at him. She thought she heard him wrong. $2 million? She repeated, her voice flat. Garrick reached into his coat and pulled out a folder. Thick, heavy, official looking. He opened it and held up the first page. Bank transfers. Dates. Names. Melissa didn't understand the details, but the numbers were clear. Too clear. You're lying, she whispered. I do not lie, Garrick said. Melissa's throat tightened. Her first instinct was anger. Because hope was cruel. Because people loved to play with someone who had nothing. I've never had $2 million, Melissa said, her voice rising. I've never had $2,000. I've never even had $200 that wasn't already owed to someone else. Garrick's gaze sharpened. I know. Melissa's breath caught. Because he said it like he truly knew. Garrick turned the folder slightly, showing another page. A name. Sophia Martinez. Melissa felt sick. No, not Sophia. Not Aunt Sophia. She's your guardian, Garrick said, his voice dangerously calm. And for 18 years she has been receiving funds meant for you. Melissa's mouth went dry. That can't be right. Garrick's eyes narrowed. Tell me about your life, Melissa. Melissa flinched. Because no one had asked her that in a long time. Not in a real way. Not like it mattered. She swallowed. I grew up with Sophia. Garrick's stillness felt like pressure. She told me my parents left me nothing, Melissa continued, her voice low. She said there wasn't money. She said we were struggling. She said I had to be grateful she even took me in. Garrick didn't blink. Melissa forced herself to keep going. I tried to be good, she said, and the words came out with painful honesty. I cleaned the house. I did chores. I stayed quiet. I didn't ask for much. She laughed again, bitter and small. Didn't matter. Garrick's fingers tightened on the folder. Melissa's voice shook. She'd tell people I was a problem. That I was difficult. That I had issues. If I cried, she said I was dramatic. If I smiled, she said I was manipulative. If I asked for something, new shoes, a school trip, she'd say I was selfish. Garrick's eyes darkened. Melissa's hands trembled around her backpack strap. And when I got older, she whispered, she started taking things away. My room. My phone. My friends. She'd punish me for anything. Sometimes for nothing. The shelter felt too quiet around them now. Even the volunteers had stopped moving. People were listening without meaning to. Melissa looked down. She said I didn't deserve more. Garrick's voice dropped to something cold and sharp. An education? Melissa froze. Because that question hit a wound. She said I wasn't smart enough for college, Melissa said. She said it was a waste of money. Garrick's mouth tightened. Melissa pressed her lips together, then admitted the truth that always embarrassed her. I didn't even finish my last year properly, she whispered. I worked. I tried to save. I thought if I could just get out. Her voice cracked. She kicked me out, Melissa said, and the words were barely audible. On my 18th birthday. Garrick's breath slowed. Victor, the younger man, shifted slightly, and his expression looked like anger held under control. Melissa lifted her chin, forcing herself not to cry. So if you're here to tell me my aunt stole money, then fine. Great. That doesn't give me food. That doesn't fix anything. Garrick's gaze locked onto hers. It does, he said, and his voice carried something ancient and final. Because you are not staying here another night. Melissa's heart jerked. She shook her head quickly. I don't need saving. Garrick didn't argue. He simply stated, you needed protection. And you did not receive it. Melissa swallowed. Who are you to me? Garrick stared at the pendant again. And when he spoke, his voice sounded like he was opening a sealed tomb. I am your blood, he said. And I am the one who failed you. Melissa blinked hard. That doesn't make sense. Garrick took a slow breath. Your mother's name was Lauren, he said. Melissa's knees nearly gave out. No one said her mother's name. Sophia hated it when Melissa asked about her. Hated it like it burned. How do you know that? Melissa whispered. Garrick's eyes looked haunted now. Because Lauren was my daughter. Silence cracked through the room. Melissa stared at him like he had spoken a language she didn't understand. She swallowed. My grandfather? Garrick didn't nod like it was simple. He nodded like it was painful. Yes. Melissa's mind spiraled. If he was her grandfather, why wasn't he there? Why didn't he stop Sophia? Why didn't he? Her voice rose suddenly, sharp with years of buried hurt. Where were you? The question landed like a slap. Garrick's face didn't change, but something in his eyes flinched. I stayed away, he said. Because your mother asked for a normal life for you. Melissa shook her head. Normal? This is normal? Garrick's jaw tightened. No. Melissa laughed, but it sounded like a sob. You sent money instead of being there. Yes, Garrick said, and he did not excuse himself. I believed it would be enough. Melissa's voice trembled with anger. It wasn't. I know, Garrick said. That simple sentence broke something inside her. Because he didn't deny it. He didn't make excuses. He didn't blame her. He accepted the failure like it was his to carry. Melissa wiped her face quickly, ashamed that tears were showing. Garrick's gaze softened just slightly. You should not be ashamed of surviving. Melissa stared at him. No one had ever said that to her. Garrick lifted the folder again. I can prove everything. I have records. I have legal documents. I have the trust itself. Melissa's stomach twisted. If that's true, then why didn't anyone find me before? Garrick's voice turned quieter. Because Sophia lied very well. Victor stepped forward, careful not to look threatening. We checked the boarding school she claimed you attended, he said. It closed years ago. The building doesn't exist anymore. Melissa's breath caught. She remembered Sophia bragging about the elite school to neighbors. The uniforms. The tuition. The opportunities. It had all been a story. Victor continued. She filed paperwork to keep you isolated. Changed addresses. Controlled mail. Controlled communication. Whenever the trust administrators asked for updates, she provided fake documents. Melissa's hands started shaking again, but now it wasn't fear of Garrick. It was rage at the truth. She stole my life, Melissa whispered. Garrick's eyes turned cold. She stole what belonged to you, he corrected. And she will return it. Melissa looked around, suddenly aware of all the people listening. She felt exposed. She grabbed her backpack tighter. I don't want a scene, she muttered. Garrick nodded slightly. Then we will leave quietly. Melissa hesitated. Every instinct told her not to trust anyone. But then she looked at the pendant again, her mother's pendant, and the way Garrick had recognized it like a wound. And she realized something terrifying. This wasn't random. This wasn't a scam. This was family. And family could be dangerous. But it could also be the only way out. Melissa's voice came out small. Where would I even go? Garrick answered without hesitation. Home, he said. Melissa laughed in disbelief. I don't have a home. Garrick stepped closer, his voice steady. You do now. Melissa stared at him. There was a weight in his words, like he wasn't offering. He was declaring. As if the world itself had to obey. Melissa's eyes dropped to his hands. They looked human. Strong. Come. But something about him felt older than human. Older than the city. Older than the lies that shaped her life. She whispered the question she didn't even want to ask because it sounded impossible. What are you? Garrick's eyes held hers. And for a split second, the light above them flickered, like the world was nervous. I am the king of my house, he said carefully. And your mother came from my bloodline. Melissa frowned, confused. What does that mean? Victor looked uneasy, like he knew Garrick was about to reveal something dangerous in a public place. But Garrick simply said, it means there are things you do not know about yourself. About your mother. About your inheritance. Melissa's pulse raced again. You mean the money? Garrick's expression sharpened. Not just money. Melissa's throat tightened. Then what? Garrick's gaze moved to the pendant again. That crest, he said. That symbol belongs to my family. It is not a human family crest. It is older. And it carries rules. Melissa didn't understand, but the fear returned. Rules like what? Garrick's voice dropped. Rules that once kept me away. Rules that said your mother's choice must be respected. Melissa's eyes burned. Her choice got me abused. Garrick flinched, barely, and it looked like guilt. You're right, he said. And that is why I am here now. Melissa breathed hard through her nose. If you're telling me I'm not normal, then I don't want it. Garrick's eyes softened again. You are normal in the ways that matter. You feel pain. You love. You endure. He paused. But you also carry a bloodline that recognizes injustice. Melissa swallowed. That sounds like a story. Garrick looked at her like he wished it was only a story. It is not. Melissa stared at him. If this was true, then everything was wrong. Her aunt didn't just steal money. She stole identity. She stole history. She stole the truth of who Melissa was. Melissa's voice trembled. What happens now? Garrick's gaze turned sharp again, like steel wrapped in velvet. Now, he said, we find Sophia. Melissa's stomach dropped. I don't want to see her. You will not face her alone, Garrick promised. Melissa hesitated. I don't want revenge. Garrick's voice stayed calm, but something dark lived under it. This is not revenge, he said. This is justice. Melissa looked away, blinking hard. Justice was something she had stopped believing in. But Garrick's presence made it feel possible again. Victor cleared his throat quietly. Sir, the car is ready. Melissa startled. Car? Garrick gestured toward the door. Outside, through the glass, Melissa saw a black vehicle parked under the streetlight. Slick. Expensive. Like a different universe. Melissa took a step back. I can't just. Garrick didn't push. He didn't grab. He only said, you can. And you will not be punished for needing help. That sentence hit her harder than anything else. Not punished. Melissa swallowed the lump in her throat. Her eyes darted across the shelter. The bunks, the tired faces, the thin blankets. This place had been survival. But it had never been living. Melissa exhaled shakily. Okay, she whispered. Garrick nodded once, like he respected her choice. As they walked toward the exit, the room remained silent. A woman near the door, an older resident, reached out gently and touched Melissa's sleeve. You deserve better, the woman whispered. Melissa froze, then nodded, unable to speak. Garrick paused and looked at the older woman with a respectful gaze. You are right, he said simply. Then he guided Melissa out into the cold night. The wind slapped Melissa's face and she pulled her hoodie tighter. The car door opened and warm air rushed out. Melissa hesitated again, standing on the curb like stepping inside would erase the last 18 years. Garrick stood beside her, not rushing, not forcing. Finally, Melissa stepped in. The seat was soft. Too soft. It felt wrong to be comfortable. Garrick closed the door, then got in on the other side. Victor sat in the front. As the car began to move, Melissa stared out the window at the city lights. Her voice came out small. If you really are my grandfather, then why did my aunt call you a monster? Garrick's gaze sharpened. She called me that? He asked. Melissa nodded. When I was little. If I asked about my mom's family, she'd say, stay away from them. They're monsters. They'll take you. Garrick looked away for a moment, and his expression held something old and painful. Your aunt feared what she could not control, he said. And she feared the truth. Melissa's stomach tightened. So what is the truth? The car passed under a streetlight, and for a split second, Melissa saw something in Garrick's eyes. A faint silver gleam. Not human. Not normal. Melissa's breath caught. Garrick noticed. He didn't deny it. He didn't hide. He simply said, when we arrive, you will be safe. You will be fed. You will sleep in a real bed. Melissa's voice trembled. And then? Garrick turned to her. And then, he said, you will learn who your mother truly was. Melissa's heart pounded. Because her mother was the one person Melissa had loved without memory. Loved without proof. Loved like a ghost. And you, Garrick continued, will decide what you want to become. Melissa blinked. I get to decide? Garrick nodded, slow and certain. Yes. The word felt unfamiliar. Choice. Melissa looked down at her hands. They were rough. Scarred from work. From cold. From survival. But they were her hands. And for the first time she felt like her life might belong to her. As the car moved deeper into the night, Melissa whispered the question she was afraid to ask. Is Sophia going to get away with it? Garrick's answer was quiet. But it carried the weight of something that didn't bend. No, he said. She is not. Melissa's eyes watered again, but this time, it wasn't only sadness. It was something else. Relief. And the smallest spark of hope. The car turned onto a private road lined with tall trees, their branches reaching like shadows. In the distance, a large estate emerged, dark stone, iron gates, and lights glowing warm behind tall windows. Melissa stared. It looked like something from a fantasy book. A place that didn't belong in her world. Garrick watched her expression. This is Iron Vale, he said. This is where your mother grew up. Melissa's voice came out breathless. This is mine? Garrick's gaze held hers. "It will be," he said. "If you want it." The gates opened slowly as the car approached, like the estate itself recognized Garrick and obeyed. Melissa's pendant suddenly felt warmer against her chest, like it was waking up, like something inside her had been asleep for 18 years, and was now finally opening its eyes. The house that remembered her. The iron gates closed behind the car with a deep, final sound, like a chapter ending. Melissa watched through the window as the city lights disappeared, replaced by tall trees and a winding stone road. The estate ahead loomed larger with every second, dark stone walls, high windows glowing softly, iron lanterns lining the path like silent guards. Her chest felt tight. This place was beautiful, but it was also intimidating. The car slowed and finally stopped beneath a wide archway. The moment the engine shut off, silence rushed in, thick, heavy, unnatural compared to the noise of the shelter and streets. Garrick stepped out first. The cold didn't seem to bother him. He straightened his coat and turned back toward Melissa, offering his hand, not demanding, not pulling, just waiting. Melissa hesitated only a second before placing her hand in his. The instant their skin touched, a strange warmth spread through her fingers, traveling up her arm like a quiet pulse. She stiffened. Garrick noticed. "Are you all right?" he asked calmly. Yeah, she said, confused. "I just felt warm." A flicker crossed his eyes. Not surprise. Recognition. "That house reacts to blood," he said simply. "It always has." Melissa swallowed. "You keep saying blood like it's more than family." Garrick didn't answer right away. Instead, he guided her forward. The front doors opened without a sound. Inside, the air was warm, rich with the scent of old wood, fire, and something metallic beneath it, faint but unmistakable. Candles burned in tall iron holders, though no one seemed to have lit them recently. Melissa took a slow step inside. Her boots echoed softly on polished stone floors etched with symbols she didn't recognize. Portraits lined the walls, men and women dressed in elegant old-fashioned clothing, their eyes sharp and alive in a way that made Melissa uncomfortable. They didn't look painted. They looked aware. She hugged her backpack to her chest. "This place feels like it's watching me," she whispered. Garrick didn't deny it. "It is." Melissa stopped walking. "That's not comforting." A faint corner of Garrick's mouth lifted, not a smile but something close. "It is watching you because it remembers you." Melissa's breath caught. "Come," Garrick said gently. "Before we talk about anything else, you need food." Food. The word hit her harder than magic or bloodlines. She hadn't eaten properly in months. Soup and bread kept her alive but not strong. They entered a dining hall larger than the shelter's entire floor. A long table stood in the center, already set, silverware polished, plates warm, steam rising from covered dishes. Melissa stared. "You knew I was coming?" "I hoped," Garrick said honestly. "I prepared in case hope was rewarded." Her throat tightened. A woman stepped forward from the shadows. Tall, composed, with dark hair pulled back neatly and eyes that missed nothing. "Welcome home," the woman said. "I am Ilara." Melissa stiffened. "Home?" Ilara's gaze softened. "If you wish it to be." Garrick gestured. "Ilara oversees the household. She has served my family for centuries." Melissa's eyes widened. "Centuries?" Ilara inclined her head slightly. "Longer than most human lifetimes." There it was again. Human. Melissa sat down slowly at the table, unsure if her legs would hold her. Ilara uncovered the dishes, roasted vegetables, fresh bread, steaming stew, fruit that looked impossibly perfect. The smell alone made Melissa dizzy. "Eat," Garrick said quietly. "No one here will judge you." She picked up her spoon with shaking fingers. The first bite nearly broke her. It was warm. Real. Filling. Tears stung her eyes as she swallowed. Garrick watched silently, his jaw tight. No one spoke while she ate. No one rushed her. No one told her to be grateful. When she finally leaned back, exhausted but full, Ilara placed a glass of water beside her. "Thank you," Melissa whispered. Ilara smiled. "You are family." That word again. Melissa looked down at her hands. "I don't understand any of this." "You will," Garrick said. "But slowly." He leaned forward slightly. "Tell me something first. Did Sophia ever hurt you physically?" Melissa froze. Her silence was answer enough. "She slapped me sometimes," Melissa admitted quietly. "When she was angry. Or when I embarrassed her." Garrick's eyes darkened to something almost black. "And the bruise on your face?" he asked. Melissa touched her cheek instinctively. "A man at work. He grabbed me." When I pushed him away, he said I was lucky he even noticed me. The room changed. The candles flickered violently, flames stretching too high for a split second before settling. Alara stiffened. Victor, standing near the door, lowered his gaze. Garrick didn't move. But the air felt heavier. Did Sophia know? Garrick asked. Melissa nodded. She said it was my fault. That I should be thankful someone wanted me. Something ancient stirred behind Garrick's eyes. That will not happen again, he said softly. Melissa believed him. Not because he was loud, but because his calm felt dangerous. Garrick rose from his seat. Alara, prepare a room for Melissa. The East Wing. Alara's eyebrows lifted slightly, a rare sign of surprise. The Legacy Wing? Yes, Garrick said. Her mother's rooms. Melissa's breath caught. My mom's room? Alara nodded gently. It has been untouched. Melissa stood slowly, her heart racing. They walked through quiet corridors until they reached a set of tall wooden doors. Alara opened them. Inside was a bedroom filled with moonlight. Soft fabrics, old furniture, shelves of books. A window overlooked the forest. On the dresser sat a small wooden box. Melissa stepped inside, drawn to it. She opened the box carefully. Inside were letters. Dozens of them. Each addressed in elegant handwriting. For Melissa. Her hands shook as she picked one up. She wrote those, Garrick said. Before she died. Melissa's voice broke. Why didn't I get them? Garrick's gaze turned cold. Because Sophia intercepted every one. Tears slid down Melissa's face. She pressed the letter to her chest. Garrick hesitated, then placed a careful hand on her shoulder. I cannot undo what you lost, he said quietly. But I will not let anyone take more from you. Melissa turned to him, eyes wet. You really mean that? Yes. She took a shaky breath. Then tell me the truth. Garrick nodded. Ask. What was my mother? Melissa asked. Really? Garrick met her gaze fully now. She was vampire-born, he said. Royal blood. Powerful. And brave enough to give it up. Melissa felt the room tilt. So, what does that make me? Different, Garrick said carefully. You carry dormant blood. It has not awakened. Melissa swallowed hard. Yet. Only if you choose, Garrick said firmly. She stared at him. You mean I could become, like you? Yes, Garrick said. Or remain human. Choice again. And Sophia? Melissa asked, her voice steadier now. What happens to her? Garrick's expression hardened like stone. She will answer for every coin she stole, he said. Every lie she told. Every bruise you carry. Melissa hugged the letters tighter. For the first time, she whispered, I don't feel invisible. Garrick nodded. Good. Because you were never meant to be. As Melissa lay down later that night in a real bed, wrapped in warmth, she stared at the ceiling. Her life hadn't just changed. It had been returned. And somewhere deep inside her blood, something ancient listened, and waited. Blood does not forget. Melissa woke before dawn. Not because of fear. Not because of hunger. But because the house was humming. At first, she thought it was her imagination, the faint vibration under her skin, like the echo of distant thunder. She lay still in the massive bed, listening. The room was quiet, moonlight fading into early gray through the tall window. And yet, something was awake. Melissa sat up slowly. The letters from her mother were stacked neatly on the bedside table, untouched since she fell asleep clutching them. Her pendant rested against her collarbone, warm again like it had been most of the night. She pressed her fingers to it. The humming grew stronger. Her breath caught. This wasn't fear. It was recognition. As if some hidden part of her had just realized it was no longer alone. Melissa swung her legs over the side of the bed. The floor was cold beneath her feet, grounding. She took one careful step forward. The moment she crossed the center of the room, the candles along the walls ignited on their own. Melissa froze. Her heart slammed against her ribs. That's not normal, she whispered. The flames didn't flicker wildly. They burned steady and calm like they were meant to be lit. Melissa backed up slowly. The candles dimmed again. She stopped. They brightened. Her breath turned shallow. Okay, I see you. She didn't know who she was talking to, the house, the blood, the memory of her mother, but something inside her settled, like it had been waiting for acknowledgement. A soft knock sounded at the door. Melissa nearly jumped out of her skin. Yes, she called. Alara entered quietly, her expression composed but alert. You felt it, Alara said. Melissa stared. Felt what? The house, Alara replied. Responding to you. Melissa swallowed. It lit the candles. Elara nodded. It hasn't done that for anyone since your mother. That made Melissa's chest ache. I didn't mean to, Melissa started. You didn't cause it, Elara said gently. You awakened it. Before Melissa could respond, Garrick appeared in the doorway. He looked exactly the same as the night before, perfectly composed as if sleep were optional. But his eyes were sharp. You felt it too, Melissa said. Garrick inclined his head. Yes. She wrapped her arms around herself. Am I in danger? No, Garrick said immediately. But you are changing. Melissa's stomach dropped. Already? Garrick stepped inside. Not in the way you fear. What stirred last night was not hunger. It was recognition. Recognition of what? She asked. Of home, Garrick said. And of safety. That didn't make sense, but somehow it did. Elara spoke softly. Blood that has been dormant for 18 years does not awaken violently when it is welcomed gently. Melissa thought of the shelter. The cold. The fear. The constant vigilance. Nothing had awakened then. This place had. Garrick gestured toward the letters. You should read them. Melissa nodded slowly. They moved to the sitting area beside the window. Morning light spilled across the floor as Melissa opened the first envelope with shaking fingers. Her mother's handwriting was elegant but warm. My sweet girl. If you are reading this, it means I am no longer there to explain everything myself. I hope, more than anything, that you are safe. Tears blurred the page. You were born with a legacy that can be both a gift and a burden. I chose to keep it from you not because I was ashamed but because I wanted you to know kindness before power. Melissa swallowed hard. Your grandfather will seem frightening at first. Please know this, he loves deeply even when he fails to show it the right way. If he has found you, it means the world finally stopped lying to him. Melissa looked up at Garrick. His face was rigid, like he was holding himself together by force alone. She continued reading. I gave up immortality so you could choose your life freely. Not everyone will respect that choice. Some may try to use you. Please remember this. Your worth does not come from what you can become, but from who you already are. Melissa pressed the letter to her chest. Sophia's voice echoed in her memory, you don't deserve more. Her mother's voice erased it. You deserve the truth. You deserve protection. And if you ever feel small, remember that your kindness is stronger than fear. Melissa's tears fell freely now. Garrick turned away slightly, giving her space. When she finished the letter, she whispered, she knew. Yes, Garrick said quietly. She knew someone would try to steal what she protected. Melissa's jaw tightened. Sophia. Garrick's eyes hardened. Victor has already begun. As if summoned, Victor appeared in the doorway. We found her, he said calmly. And she does not know she's been found. Melissa's pulse spiked. Where is she? Living very comfortably, Victor replied. Luxury apartment. Private accounts. Expensive habits. Melissa laughed once, bitter and sharp. Of course. Garrick spoke carefully. You do not have to face her. Melissa lifted her chin. I want to. Garrick studied her. Why? Because she made me feel like I was nothing, Melissa said. And I want her to know I survived. Garrick nodded slowly. Then you will face her with witnesses. That evening the meeting was arranged. Sophia arrived at Iron Vale under false pretenses, believing she was meeting lawyers about an inheritance dispute. She walked into the grand hall with confidence, dressed in designer clothing, her smile practiced. It vanished the moment she saw Melissa standing beside Garrick. Her face drained of color. Melissa? Sophia whispered. What is this? Melissa didn't step back. Hello, Aunt Sophia, she said calmly. Sophia forced a laugh. You look thin. I told you shelters were dangerous. Garrick spoke before Melissa could respond. You stole from my blood, he said evenly. Sophia stiffened. I don't know what you're talking about. Victor slid a tablet onto the table. Bank statements. Transfers. Forged documents. Sophia's mouth opened. Closed. Melissa watched her carefully. For the first time in her life, Sophia looked small. You were given 18 years of mercy, Garrick continued. You answered with greed. Sophia turned to Melissa desperately. I did what I had to. I raised you. You were difficult, always asking questions. Melissa felt something surge. Not anger. Clarity. No, she said quietly. You controlled me. You isolated me. You lied to everyone. Sophia's voice cracked. I deserve that money. The air changed. The lights dimmed. Sophia gasped, clutching her chest. Garrick didn't move. That, he said calmly, is the consequence of speaking entitlement in this house. Sophia collapsed to her knees. I didn't know, she sobbed. I didn't know who she was. Melissa stepped forward. That was the problem, she said softly. You never wanted to know. Guards entered. Legal representatives followed. Sophia was escorted out, crying, screaming, powerless. The doors closed behind her. Silence returned. Melissa exhaled shakily. Garrick turned to her. Are you all right? She nodded. I feel lighter. Ilara smiled faintly. Justice often feels like that. Later that night, Melissa stood on the balcony overlooking the forest. The moon was full. Her pendant glowed faintly. Garrick joined her. You handled that with restraint, he said. I learned restraint by surviving, Melissa replied. Garrick looked at her differently now. Not just with guilt. With respect. You are stronger than most who awaken fully, he said. Melissa glanced at him. You mean vampires? Yes. She studied the moon. I don't know what I want to become. Garrick nodded. Then you will take time. No one will force you. Melissa turned to him. You really mean that? I failed once, Garrick said. I will not fail again. A quiet moment passed. Then Melissa asked, if I stay human, will you still want me here? Garrick met her gaze. You are my granddaughter, he said. Blood does not forget. And neither do I. Something warm settled in her chest. Not magic. Belonging. And deep beneath her skin, something ancient listened, and chose to wait. The choice that wakes the night. The night after Sophia's removal, the Ironvale estate did not sleep. Melissa felt it before anyone told her. She stood at the tall window in her mother's room, watching the forest below sway gently in the moonlight. The air vibrated again, not the gentle hum from before but something sharper, alert, like the house had drawn a slow, steady breath and was holding it. Danger. Her pendant grew warm then hot. Melissa pressed her palm to it, wincing. What is it now? The glass in the window rippled faintly, like disturbed water. Behind her, the door opened without a sound. Garrick stepped inside, already dressed, his coat fastened, his presence focused and deadly calm. You feel it, he said. Yes, Melissa replied. It's different. Garrick nodded. Because it is not coming from within the house. Her heart skipped. Someone's coming. Several someones, Garrick corrected. Melissa turned. Sophia? Garrick's expression hardened. Sophia was never the true danger. She was bait. Melissa's blood ran cold. He continued, by stealing from you she triggered attention. Certain factions believed you were lost. Others believed you were dead. Tonight they learn neither is true. Melissa swallowed. Because of me. No, Garrick said firmly. Because of greed. A deep, resonant bell rang once somewhere within the estate, low, ancient, powerful. Melissa jumped. That bell, she said. It feels like it went through me. It did, Garrick said. It is bound to our bloodline. It only rings when Ironvale is challenged. Ilara appeared in the doorway, composed but armed, silver-edged dagger at her side. The outer wards are disturbed, she reported. 3 signatures. Old blood. Garrick exhaled slowly. They did not come to negotiate. Melissa's pulse thundered. What do they want? Garrick looked at her fully now. They want you, he said. As leverage. As power. Or as a symbol. Melissa's hands curled into fists. I'm not an object. No, Garrick agreed. You are a claim. That word chilled her. Before she could ask more, the house shook. Not violently, controlled. Like a warning. Melissa felt something inside her respond. Not fear. Anger. Protective anger. They're hurting the house, she said. Garrick's eyes sharpened. Yes. Without thinking, Melissa stepped forward. Stop, she said, not shouting, not whispering. Just speaking. The shaking stopped. The silence that followed was absolute. Ilara stared at Melissa. Garrick went very still. You commanded the wards, Ilara said quietly. Melissa's breath came fast. I didn't mean to. But you did, Garrick said. Instinctively. The pendant burned hot against her skin, then cooled. Outside, a voice echoed through the forest, smooth, amused, and ancient. Garrick Ironvale, the voice called. You hide your blood poorly. Melissa's stomach dropped. Garrick stepped in front of her, his posture shifting from guardian to king. You trespass, he said calmly. Leave. Laughter followed, low and cruel. We smelled her awakening from miles away, the voice replied. The half-blood lives. How quaint. Half-blood. Melissa flinched. Garrick's voice turned deadly. Say that word again and you will not leave. 3 figures emerged at the edge of the grounds, pale, tall, their eyes glowing faintly red. They moved like shadows given bones. Old council, Ilara muttered. Exiled. Melissa's pulse raced. Council of what? Garrick didn't look away from the intruders. Of vampires who believe bloodlines should be controlled, not chosen. One of the figures stepped closer. Your daughter weakened the line. You allowed it. And now the child remains unclaimed. Melissa's anger flared. I'm not unclaimed, she said, stepping beside Garrick despite his subtle attempt to shield her. I claim myself. The forest stilled. The vampire's eyes snapped to her. Bold, one said. She speaks like royalty. Garrick's jaw tightened. She is royalty. That word echoed through Melissa's chest. The lead intruder smiled slowly. Then let her prove it. He raised a hand. The wards flared violently. Pain sliced through Melissa's head like lightning. She cried out and dropped to her knees. Melissa. Garrick roared. Something snapped. Not inside the house. Inside her. The pain vanished, replaced by clarity so sharp it hurt. Melissa stood. Her eyes burned, not red, not silver, but something deeper, older. The forest bent. The intruder staggered back, shocked. She hasn't chosen yet, one hissed. Impossible. Melissa didn't feel monstrous. She felt protective. You will not touch this place, she said, her voice carrying without effort. You will not touch me. And you will never use my blood again. The words didn't feel like a spell. They felt like truth. The wards surged outward, slamming into the intruders like an invisible wall. 2 were thrown back into the trees. The leader barely stayed upright, staring at her with disbelief. Untouched blood, he whispered. And yet command. Garrick looked at her like he was seeing her for the first time, not as something fragile, but as something formidable. Leave, Melissa said again. Now. The intruder bowed, mocking but careful. This is not over, he said. The world will come for you. He vanished into shadow. The forest fell silent. Melissa swayed. Garrick caught her instantly, steadying her. Her breathing was ragged. I didn't mean to do that. Garrick held her shoulders, searching her face. Did you choose? Melissa shook her head. No. I just protected. Garrick nodded slowly. That, he said softly, is exactly who your mother was. The estate slowly relaxed, the tension draining like a held breath released. Melissa leaned against Garrick, exhausted. I don't want power, she whispered. I just want peace. Garrick rested his forehead briefly against hers, a gesture of deep trust. And that, he said, is why power listens to you. As dawn crept over the trees, Melissa stood wrapped in a blanket on the balcony, watching the night retreat. Ilara joined them quietly. The council will spread word, she warned. Some will fear her. Others will desire her. Melissa closed her eyes. I don't want to run. You won't, Garrick said. This house will stand. And so will you. She looked up at him. What if staying human makes me a target? Garrick met her gaze. Then I will stand between you and the world, he said. Until my last breath or beyond. Melissa believed him. Because this time she wasn't invisible. She was seen. She was protected. And she was choosing something far more dangerous than power. Herself. The blood she chose. Morning arrived quietly, as if the world itself was careful not to disturb what had nearly been broken. Sunlight filtered through the tall windows of iron veil, touching the stone floors with soft gold. The estate looked peaceful again, but Melissa knew better now. Peace was not the absence of danger. Peace was what you protected after surviving it. She stood alone in the legacy garden, wrapped in a thick coat Ilara had given her. Frost clung to the roses, silvered and fragile. Her breath fogged the air as she stared at her hands. They looked the same. Human hands. And yet, they had commanded an ancient house. They had driven away creatures older than nations. I don't feel different, she whispered. That is because you are not broken, Garrick said behind her. She turned. He stood a few steps away, no crown, no visible power, just a tall man with centuries in his eyes and regret written into every line of his stillness. You didn't sleep, Melissa said. Garrick shook his head. Kings do not sleep when the future of their bloodline is awake. Melissa hugged her arms. They called me half-blood. They were wrong, Garrick replied. You are whole. She studied him. That doesn't mean I want to be what you are. I know, Garrick said. And that is why I called the conclave. Her heart skipped. The council? A reformed one, he corrected. Those who believe choice matters. As if summoned by his words, figures began to appear at the edge of the garden. Vampires, but unlike the intruders from the night before. Their eyes were calm. Their movements respectful. They kept their distance. Melissa stiffened. Garrick noticed immediately. You are not on trial, he said gently. You are being acknowledged. A tall woman stepped forward, her hair dark as night, her expression solemn. Melissa Ironvale, she said, bowing her head. Daughter of Lauren. Heir by blood. Sovereign by choice. Melissa swallowed. I didn't ask for this. The woman smiled faintly. Neither did most rulers worth remembering. Garrick spoke clearly. She will decide her fate now. And no law older or newer will override her will. A murmur rippled through the gathered vampires. Melissa felt the weight of centuries pressing in, not demanding but waiting. She closed her eyes. Images flooded her mind. The shelter. The soup kitchen. Sophia's voice telling her she was nothing. Her mother's letters. The warmth of the house responding not to power but to protection. She opened her eyes. I choose to remain human, Melissa said. The garden went still. Some vampires stiffened. Others exhaled softly. Garrick did not react. He only watched her, eyes steady, proud. But, Melissa continued, her voice stronger now, I will not deny my blood. I will not be hidden. And I will not be owned. She met Garrick's gaze. I choose guardianship, not domination. Protection, not control. And if my blood awakens one day, it will be because I decide, no one else. Silence stretched. Then the woman bowed deeply. So spoken, she said. So recorded. One by one the others bowed. Melissa's knees nearly gave out from relief. The conclave dispersed quietly, the weight lifting like fog burned away by sun. Later that day, Garrick sat beside Melissa in the great hall as Victor delivered the final report. Sophia Martinez, Victor said calmly, has been charged with fraud, abuse and financial theft. All assets frozen. Public trial scheduled. Melissa nodded slowly. She asked for you, Victor added. Melissa's stomach tightened. What did she say? Victor hesitated. She said you owe her forgiveness. Melissa let out a soft, humorless breath. No, she said. I owe myself peace. Victor nodded. Understood. When the hall emptied, Melissa turned to Garrick. You could have erased her, she said quietly. No trial. No mess. Garrick nodded. Yes. Why didn't you? Because justice should be seen, Garrick said. And because your mother believed truth was stronger than fear. Melissa smiled sadly. She really did raise me, didn't she? Garrick's voice softened. She did. That evening, Melissa returned to her mother's room one last time. She packed only what mattered, the letters, the pendant, a few books. Garrick watched from the doorway. You're leaving the estate, he said, not accusing. Yes, Melissa replied. I need to live. Really live. Go to school. Or choose things without fear. Garrick nodded slowly. Where will you go? Melissa smiled gently. Somewhere small. Somewhere honest. She hesitated, then added, but I don't want to disappear again. You won't, Garrick said. This house will always answer you. She stepped closer. And you? Garrick met her gaze. I will watch, he said. Not from shadows. From respect. Melissa reached out and hugged him. He stiffened for half a second, then wrapped his arms around her carefully, like holding something precious and breakable. Thank you, she whispered. For finding me. Garrick closed his eyes briefly. Forgive me, he said softly. For not finding you sooner. Months later, Melissa stood in a small apartment flooded with sunlight. Books stacked on the floor. College acceptance letter pinned to the wall. A part-time job she chose, not because she had to survive but because she wanted to grow. Her pendant rested warm but quiet against her skin. Sometimes at night she felt the house hum in the distance. Not calling. Just listening. And far away, in a stone estate older than memory, a vampire king stood at a window, watching the world his granddaughter was finally free to choose. Not as a weapon. Not as a symbol. But as herself.